always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany The Tourist. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. An old man sat outside the walls of a great city. When travelers approached, they would ask him, "What kind of people live here?" And the old man would answer, "What kind of people lived in the place where you came from?" If the travelers answered only bad people lived in the place where we came from, then the old man would reply, "Continue on, you will find only bad people here." But if the travelers answered only good people lived in the place where we came from, then the old man would say, "Enter, for here too you will find only good people." A Yiddish folktale by Noah Ben-Shea from The Word, Jewish Wisdom Through Time, published by Random House. The Tourist, this hour, with Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. Chicago, wishing you were here, and John Lennon just like starting over. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. A Latin proverb states that to every man his own life is a mystery. Judy Wardell, an American writer, adds to that proverb by saying, "Life was meant to be a mystery, to be lived spontaneously from a present time, unpredictable place." And George Buttrick said, "We live on a moving line between past and future. That line is our lifeline." So, are you a tourist just passing through, content with the stops mapped out, the sites set aside for you to visit? Or do you feel the need to escape the planned itinerary and go off on your own? George Gissing, from the Private Papers of Henry Rycroft, published by the Modern Library, wrote, "It is familiarity with life that makes time speed quickly. When every day is a step in the unknown, as for children, the days are long with gathering of experience." Unquote. The Tourist, this hour. Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. Al Stewart, Traveling in the Year of the Cat, and Billy Joel, In a New York State of Mind. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., the American jurist, believed all life is an experiment. Barbara Callahan, American writer and editor, said, "This earthly world is our workroom, our laboratory. This is where we figure out how to do it." And Tom Peters from the Chicago Tribune wrote, "Life is pretty simple. You do some stuff, most fails, some works. You do more of what works. If it works, others will copy it. Then you do something else. The trick is in the doing something else." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Marc Cohn, Walking in Memphis. Edward Bear, You, Me, and Mexico, and Natasha Bedingfield, Unwritten. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Our Canadian National Exhibition is on right now. It's our traditional end-of-summer bash that attracts visitors from far and wide. Don Aslett from Clutter's Last Stand, published by the Writer's Digest Books, wrote, "Experiences shouldn't be pre-recorded to be aired later in life. I've watched people at a nature reserve so bent on collecting records to enjoy later that they missed the beauty of the park. They were so busy shooting pictures, buying souvenirs, t-shirts, and maps that they never took a minute to stand and soak in that spectacular place. We can't pre-record our life to replay, because at the replay, we're only spectators. The joy comes from the participation. Preoccupation with preservation doesn't heighten an experience. It diminishes it. Don Aslett from Clutter's Last Stand. We're all tourists, lovers, and other strangers. From iTunes and CHFI.com. Christopher Cross with Arthur's Theme and Elton John and Daniel. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. A lot of tourists pass through our city every summer. You really don't have to look twice to recognize them. They are the ones who look up and are amazed by what we take for granted every day. When you play tourist in another city, you play the same role. How's this for a definition? Anita Diamant in the Boston Globe wrote, "A tourist is a person who is unashamed of being curious about the place he is in. Tourists are grateful for the kindness of waiters and other strangers. And tourists try to do as much and to have as good time as possible because they know they're not going to be around long enough to take it all in." I recently saw a bumper sticker on a truck that said, "I'm just a tourist on this planet." And I thought to myself, gee, will you look at that? Unquote. Anita Diamant in the Boston Globe. The Tourist, this hour. A perfect program to take with you on your iPod. Lovers and Other Strangers. From iTunes and CHFI.com. RyanDan with The Face and Chantal Kreviazuk leaving on a jet plane. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Paul Richard wrote, "The vagabond, when rich, is called a tourist." And the author James Michener wrote, "If you reject the food, ignore the customs, fear the religion, and avoid the people, you might better stay home. You are like a pebble thrown into water. You become wet on the surface, but are never part of the water." Unquote. James Michener quoted in the May 1996 issue of the Reader's Digest. He was speaking about travel in that quote, the etiquette of being a tourist in another land. D. Elton Trueblood wrote, "A man has made at least a start on discovering the meaning of human life when he plants shade trees, under which he knows full well he will never sit." And Martin Luther, the German theologian, said, "If I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant my apple tree." Unquote. For in the end, we are all just tourists in this place. A brief stopover between where we were before and the next destination. The least we can do is leave something of ourselves behind to remind those yet to come that we were here, leaving something of our presence behind, and that we thought it a place that was worth visiting, a place we could recommend to friends. Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. I hope you will tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.